No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glory of Golden State Gaming. I'm your host, Swamp Swimmer, and with me, as always, the Arthur to my Lancelot, Vespacian.
Hi, everybody. I'm always interested which one you pick. Is it for you versus me? Sometimes it's counterintuitive, but yeah. Anyways, I'm happy to be the king. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
So, getting back to the subject of small strategic of how to play Ninth Age in our little blurb before we go into the battle report here. What are your thoughts on ways for people to speed up play? In tournament games, we want to get through games in, 3.5 hours? And it's always frustrating when you play a game and you only get through 4 turns or get through 3 turns, and you feel like it's the other player's fault, and sometimes it's your fault, and it's just an all-around frustrating experience. What are ways that we can all speed up our play?
Yeah, I think a couple of tips. One, if you haven't, I would watch Alex Schmid's. He did a video on exactly this topic, kind of preparing for a tournament, basically. And I agree with. I'm gonna kind of regurgitate some of his, but I think one that he didn't mention is I like looking at lists and matchups in advance of the tournament and thinking about your spells. There's absolutely no reason to spend 10 minutes deciding whether or not you're going to take the magic missile or the buff when you've had the list for 3 weeks, right? So I think maybe like a last minute gut check and you just like pull it up on your phone, but that speeds things along immensely, I think. Also, practice your army in advance, right? I think that those are things that helps you figure out how you want to deploy, right? What everything does, know all the statistics, right? I mean, I think one of the biggest things that slows down the game is like 1700. What's the agility of this model? What's the defense of this model? What's the, all those kind of questions. If you know them, then it speeds the game up. Other than that, having the right tools, right? Unit spacers, unit markers, rulers, tokens, being consistent with all of that. One of the ones that I didn't think about before, but that Alex said that I love and really like now is use one kind of dice, one kind, right? So these people that bring, dice from 1700 tournaments that they've been to, and then they're not sure if it's theirs or yours or blah, 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 and it rolls across the table. And, one kind of dice, your dice, nobody else has them, and that's all you roll. I think is a good time saver, because then we all know how the table ends up after 6 turns. If you're at the end, nothing's worse than like one dice is a 3 and one dice is a 4. Did I make my 4-up save? And I'm not sure because I've got 50 types of dice, right?
Yeah.
That's we've all been to the same tournaments. You probably have Buckeye dice just like I do, right? So
Yeah.
That's something that's a time saver, I think, as well.
I agree. I definitely think the unit markers is a big deal. At first, I was against them, but I think they're so helpful when you're really thinking strategically and you move a unit and you're like, oh, that was a dumb move, and you move it back and you're like, oh, where was my unit? I do that far too often. I hate to admit it, but I agree. I think the biggest key in lowering the time of the game is lowering, just in a very general sense, your decision making. And you can do that, try to think about it personally and how can I make a decision faster. But the prep that you said of knowing your army and knowing your matchup is probably the number one thing to speed up the game. So you just don't spend an extra minute or two with every decision thinking oh, what's going to happen with dice on this one combat. I think that's a very good point. One last question is, how do you feel about chess clocks? I know that's been tossed around a number of times, but I think that's a little too intense. That's in my opinion.
I like them conceptually, but I think the execution is a problem. You forget, right? And stuff like that. And so this game, I mean, Lord, I mean, I rock up with 15 different kinds of tokens and 70 different kinds of, tools and blah, blah, blah. And like, then you add one more that I got to remember. I mean, half the time my KOE opponents can't remember to use their orisons, and I remind them about it, and so now you've got chess clocks too. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit, I feel like it would be nice, and I would play it. I would do it potentially, but it just I feel like it's just another thing to end up with abuse, right? Somebody purposely forgets every time, and then it's just a big argument. Could even slow the game down,
I agree. And you make a good point about the dice also, like having one kind of dice. I think it's a really good idea. But let's get to the battle report. We are on round 3, Vespacian's round 3 of Sactown Smackdown 2022 in Sacramento, California. And you end up with 32 points going into round 3. We don't play each other, but you get paired into John Lehman with the Ogre Cons.
Yeah, and I think at the end of 2 rounds, John was sitting on 39 points or 37. So he was favored to win it. So I'm on table 1, and I was excited about this. It's cool opportunity to win the whole thing. So yeah.
All right. If you are interested in Vespacian's list, please click the link right above my head. It is the Sactown Smackdown list review we did a little while ago. But let's talk about John's list. So he's got the Ogre Con on foot. He's got the Shaman Pyromancy Firebrand. He's got the Con BSB, the 3-character build. A big block of 10 Bruisers, 3 Tribesman Sticks, 6 Merc Vets, 3 Tusker Cav, a Tiger, a Thunder Cannon, Frost Mammoth, Slave Giant.
Yeah.
So he's got the cannon, which is a little scary for you, right?
Yeah, I think on paper I would probably rate this in like the orange range. Cannon, Poison Pistol, Merc Vet unit. The plate armor on them makes it really hard for me to take them to counter battery them with pyro. Yeah. The Great Weapon Slave Giant is a tough piece for me to deal with on the flank. And then the Kagdai Khan means that whatever block he's in, I really can't put a dragon into, right? Because he can one-shot any one of the dragons. And then also Pyromancy, tough for my Grey Watcher units, my spears, stuff like that. So I like this list. I think that Adept, the Firebranded Adept with Heirloom and Rod of Battle for 5 spells, is an incredible value right there. So yeah, I liked his list. I was this one was a tough one. I felt like on paper. Breakthrough, Tribesman Darts are great at Breakthrough, right? So yeah, I was a little worried about this one.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So you got a tough battle to win the tournament. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this to start, and I'm gonna apologize. I'm never great at pictures. This one is pretty close to taking the cake. I've got 2 pictures. I do apologize, but in my defense, this tournament started at noon. 2, I know. This tournament started at noon. This battle started, I think, at like 7:30, and it was a bit of a slog. So I do apologize, and I was also focused. So here's my first picture.
So yeah, this is marked. This is top of 2 movement. That's what it's marked as.
Yeah. So John won the roll for sides, picked the top. I got to drop everything to go first. And Breakthrough is one of those where I didn't think, you sometimes think about going second so you can sneak the units in at the end. But because of the amount of range damage and the lack of hill terrain, covering terrain, I wouldn't be able to hide all 3 dragons. I just, I felt like I wanted to take that first turn so I could reposition. So I went first. And now what you're seeing is my turn 2. And let me just kind of give you a walkthrough. So essentially what I did was I dropped heavy on the left because I wanted to be able to use the 2 impassables there and, to be able to hide my dragons. And I put both Lancers there because my hope was that with the heavy drop that he would counter deploy, and then I'd be able to put the Lancers in to for breakthrough, which I felt, I needed at least the 2 Lancers to get in to be competitive for breakthrough. Essentially, I just left my Lions. You can see them over there on the right in the ruins. My Lions and one of my Grey Watcher units over on the right. Essentially, that was my stall flank. I wanted to make it hard for him to to turn if he counter deployed. And I would try to use those 2 units to prevent him from getting more than 1 breakthrough on that side, which would then win me the objective. So I knew that I had to go a bit aggressive in this match because I was down several points on John, so I needed to beat him by more than just like a 11-9 or 12-8 kind of a thing. So what I did was he did counter deploy, so I can show you can see my units, I think, pretty well. The 2 Lancers, all 3 Dragons central, the big spear block. I've got the Reavers up at the top, the scouting Grey Watchers in the middle next to the blue dragon, the Lions and the other Grey Watchers on the right. And then for John, he had the big bruiser unit and the cannon up there on the left. He's got the giant is the only thing he put over on my left, his right. You can see there, try to zone me, with the Lancers. And then the unpainted unit is the Merc Vets with all the characters. The big, whatever that mammoth
Frost
thing
mammoth?
is the Frost Mammoth. It's
Yeah.
a cool model. And then the Tuskers and the 2 units of Tribesmen. And I think his kitty is hiding somewhere behind the big blocks. So I go aggressive with his deployment. I knew that he was he gave me the entire left half of the board, right? So I push out, and my goal is everything into that cannon, right? So if that cannon lives through the game, I'm in trouble. So this is where the Grey Watchers, the big units of Grey Watchers, show up big. So I get the cannon with I think a wound and the debuff from the Grey Watchers.
Nice. Yeah.
Which is great. So I stay in my first turn movement. I stay out of close range. So he's hitting on 6s with the cannon. So that's big, and he misses. Spoiler alert. So that's also big. And then I'm using my other Grey Watcher unit to go into the Merc Vets, right, to reduce their damage output. And with the debuff and the Lions being in the ruins, and my Dragons all being out of range over on the left, the Merc Vets are just not doing much, which is great for the damage output that unit has. So then that first turn goes well, and so I just push up again, and fortunately I put my entire phase into that cannon, and I take it off, which is magic phase, which is great.
Nice.
So that opens up the game in a big way, because at this point I could kind of play a safe-ish game, win objective, and and be pretty safe just standing off, right? So I think John's next move in turn 2 is what dictated how the rest of the game went at that point. So I think then, if you want to look at I don't know, any questions or anything before we go to my last picture, unfortunately.
No questions at all. It seems like he's playing a little cagey. He's sitting back when I think he should be pushing on you, maybe. And I really don't see what those two minnow sticks, I guess are not minnow sticks, 2 ogre sticks he put to go for breakthrough. Okay, that makes sense. This next pick is marked top of 4.
Yeah, so what happens in the intervening time is John goes for the first charge with the Tuskers and the Lions, and with the Mammoth there, that becomes pretty dicey, but that is a big potential point swing for me, right? So when he first made that, went to go for that charge, he missed it, he failed it, but I was like, okay, so now we've got a game over on the right here, right? Because if he's willing to do that, I think the Lions win that combat, and then if he's charged me and I run off the Tuskers, then I've got counter charges, right? So which I think then definitely wins me the breakthrough, gets me a bunch of points. So at that point, I'm feeling like I can go for a quite sizable win, and at this point, I'm getting worried about lower tables jumping me, right? So I think I need to go for a quite sizable win, right? So what I do then is I use the Reavers to chaff the Bruiser Star, right? And I continue to push up with everything and kind of try to bend him around that rock in the middle, the impassable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So make him turn and split his focus between the lions and the rest of my army. I basically just dance around that giant all game, essentially, and he doesn't play a big role aside from, well, anyway, so long story short, I chaff the Bruiser Star, and John doesn't charge the chaff, which opens up an opportunity for me to put the Pyro Master Mage corner clipping into the Bruiser Star with no characters, right? So, and no counter charges. And so I definitely take that opportunity, and this is where the Order of the Fiery Heart Pyro Mage in combat is just trouble, because it's like every blaze, every spell, like before I even struck, I think I'd killed like 3 or 4 ogres.
Wow.
And then the mage went in, right? And so it's a lot of damage. So essentially what happens is exactly what I had hoped. The Tuskers do come in, I kill the unit, and then I go into...
And you're swinging before both of them?
So I'm swinging Simon, so you can see he does it both.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's all damage from the Tusker charge, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But then I wipe the unit and go into the Frost Mammoth, and I was at this point I'm like, this is looking very good. I whiff against the Frost Mammoth, even with the multi-wound 2, whiff, and so he survives, and then in the following turn I kill him, which is a shame because at that point I'd lost quite a lot of lions and they were sort of combat ineffective.
Yeah.
But I got the Tuskers and the Mammoth in exchange, so that feels pretty good. And I basically use the Grey Watchers on the right and the Reavers and what's left of the lions to finish off the tribesmen on the right.
Wow,
so
and you get both of them. You get both of them, yeah.
Exactly. And then what ends up happening is the finish off the Bruiser Star, and the Bruiser
Star is killed just from your Fiery Heart Wizard.
I end up having to put the blue dragon into the flank, but yeah, I do finish him off. There's no characters in it, so I guess calling it a star is not accurate, but I finish off the Bruiser unit. And then I have a decision to make. I have a multi-charge with 2 or 3 of the dragons and the spear unit into the Merc Vets. And at this point, I'm sitting on a very big win, right? But I was like, I mean, this is what dreams are made of, right? We gotta take off the Merc Vets, and so I end up going in with the spears and the BSB only, because the other 2 dragons had taken some wounds and I'd gotten a bit nervous about it.
Yeah.
And in John's defense, he rolled not great with the Merc Vets, and the spears, who have now been in the first game the heroes, and now in the last game the heroes, they stand up to the vets with heavy magic support, and the BSB corner clips in, takes off his BSB, and in the bottom of 6 I auto break the unit and run it down.
Wow. Wowie, wow. That's a big win for you. What happened to the giant on the left here?
Yeah, so the giant had an opportunity to save the day. I think he needed, I was grinding in that combat with the Merc. It took like 3 or 4 rounds of combat to break the Merc Vets with the spears and the Nova BSB.
Mm-hmm.
But I was grinding in that combat, and that giant had an opportunity to charge the rear of the spears, and I think he needed a 5, not Swift Stride.
No.
And he failed it.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it's a bit dicey because I was, I think he obviously can, giants can flub, right? He was undamaged basically, so he wouldn't have had a ton of attacks. And I was steadfast, so I don't know that it would have actually changed the eventual outcome, but it felt pretty bad in a game that I think the dice heavily favored me. that was kind of insult to injury. And then I was able to use those remaining Grey Watchers. You can see the two in the bottom there. I ended up using them to chaff him up at the end, so he couldn't even do anything. So he was, I think, if I recall correctly, the only surviving Ogre on the table.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that takes you to a big old 20, and with that big old 20, you take the tournament.
That's right.
Congratulations. Yeah. So yeah, I remember when you going in, you were saying your list was it was a fun list, but I really think this triple dragon combo is really strong. It is really strong.
I think it's a skew, and I think this game is an exact example of like I wouldn't want to fight this list in a KG game because he outranges me. He's got lots of answers for the dragons and stuff. I think that some early, like getting the cannon down early, opened the game up in a big way, and a couple of minor tactical mistakes, like leaving that corner clip on the Bruiser Star with the Order of the Fiery Heart, like just compounded by the amount of damage I was able to put into that unit. Like that helped a lot, right? So there were some things that just went my way in a good way. I think I would, like I said, I'd rate this as a bad matchup, but the dice were with me. So I think my problem with this list is I just don't think it stands up to a 5-game GT, right? You end up against an EOS gun line, you know, a vermin swarm list or something that you can't really directly engage, or KOE list with a super duke, right? You know, like my game 2, we basically just stared at each other from 24 inches away and said, "You gonna charge? You gonna charge?" You know, so games like that, I think, do make it tough in a 5-game GT. But it was fun. I like the concept, and yeah, it was 3 good games, 3 good opponents. Got lucky.
All right, so you are the Sactown Smackdown champion. It was a great tournament. Thank you, Sean, for running it.
Yeah.
And
Well run.
Yeah, congratulations. And we'll see you. Our next tournament is we are both going to March to War. You're going to March to War, right? Yeah.
I am. I booked my flights just the other day. I'm excited.
Portland,
Are you
Oregon.
leaving? Are you staying Sunday night, or do you leave Sunday?
No, I leave Sunday night.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll see you on the next Bat Rep, and have a good evening.
Bye, everybody.